Why did God choose salt? Of all the elements he could have used to express a covenant, a bond, a blessing, he chose salt, not gold, not diamonds, not silver, but salt. Simple, common, underrated, and yet one of the most powerful substances in the human experience. There is a divine mystery wrapped in this choice, a spiritual metaphor so deep and profound that many walk right past it. They sprinkle it on their food and never pause to ask, why salt? But if you stop for a moment, just long enough to ask the right questions, you'll find your soul stirred. You'll uncover a truth that can change the way you live, the way you think, and the way you walk with God. Salt, it preserves, it purifies, it flavors, it heals, it binds. And that is no coincidence. You see, God is not random. He is deliberate. Every symbol he uses is a key, and keys are meant to unlock doors. Salt is no exception. Let's begin with preservation. In ancient times, salt was more valuable than gold because of its power to preserve life. Long before refrigeration, salt kept food from decaying. It held off the rot. It extended life. It kept what was good good. When God chose salt as a symbol of his blessing, he was telling you that his presence in your life is not just a decoration. It is preservation. When his hand is upon you, it holds back what should have destroyed you. It halts the decay of your soul. It keeps your purpose from spoiling in the heat of life's trials. You are not preserved by accident. Some of you know you should have been buried under the weight of your past. You should have lost your mind. You should have quit long ago. But there was salt on you, a blessing, a covenant. And that covenant said, this one will not rot. This one will not spoil. This one has purpose. When others gave up, you kept going. When others were ruined, you remained, because the salt of God was on your life. And then there is purification. Salt kills bacteria. Salt draws out toxins. Salt cleanses. Have you ever tasted tears? Salty. Have you ever noticed how healing often comes through the salt of your suffering? You cry. You bleed. And somehow in that pain, your soul gets cleansed. Your past gets rinsed. Your spirit begins to rise. There are some people who've gone through hell, but they came out holy, not because of what they endured, but because of how they endured it. They let the salt do its work. When God blesses you, he does not always remove the struggle, but he purifies you in the middle of it. He uses trials to separate who you were from who you were meant to become. The fire reveals the gold, but it's the salt that makes it last. This is not surface-level blessing. This is deep. This is generational. This is soul-level transformation. And it doesn't stop there. Salt also adds flavor. When Jesus said, "You are the salt of the earth," he wasn't saying you are popular. He wasn't saying you're supposed to be liked by everyone. He was saying you are necessary. He was saying that without you, the world is bland. Without you, something is missing. And when you walk into a room full of dead dreams, your words can revive taste buds that have long gone numb. When you speak with conviction, when you walk with purpose, when you live with honor, you bring flavor to a tasteless generation. You bring depth to shallow minds. You bring conviction to indifferent hearts. You are the difference. But here's the mystery salt doesn't shout. Salt doesn't draw attention to itself. Salt works in silence. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't need recognition. All it needs is contact. And that's the nature of God's true blessing. It doesn't make you loud. It makes you effective. There are people who will never understand why you have influence, why doors open for you, why your words matter. It's not because of your RA Summe. It's not because of your status. It's because you carry something, and that something is the salt of God's blessing, the quiet power of divine favor. You walk into a place and things shift, not because you raised your voice, but because you carry preservation, purification, and purpose. And let's not forget, salt heals. Have you ever had a wound cleaned with salt? It burns. Oh, it burns, but it heals. Some of the pain in your life is not punishment. It's healing. Some of what you're feeling is not God being distant, but God being deliberate. Scrubbing away the infection of pride, burning out the lies, rinsing the residue of your past so that you can finally be whole. If you avoid the salt, you avoid the healing. But if you embrace the salt, You walk out stronger, clearer, purer. And lastly, salt binds. In the Old Testament, when God made covenants with his people, he called it a covenant of salt. Why? Because salt is enduring. Salt doesn't spoil. Salt lasts. God was saying, my promise to you is not temporary. My word to you is not seasonal. My blessing is not based on your feelings. My favor does not fade. My love does not decay. People may change. The world may shift, but the salt remains. The covenant stands. The blessing endures. God's choice of salt wasn't about status. It wasn't about glamour. It was about grit. It was about durability. It was about truth. It was about sending a message that what he gives you is meant to last. Your talent may get you applause, but it is the salt that will sustain you. Your energy may give you a good start, but it is the salt that will help you finish. Your charm may win attention, but it is the salt that will win the battle. Don't pray for platforms without salt. Don't seek influence without salt. Don't chase money without salt, because without the salt, the blessing spoils. But with it, everything changes. The food changes. The atmosphere changes. You change. When you walk in your calling with the salt of God upon you, no one can deny the flavor. They may not like it, but they cannot ignore it. You become unshakable. You become unforgettable. You become untouchable, not because of who you are, but because of what covers you. Salt, a symbol of blessing, a signal of preservation, a code of covenant, a touch of divine favor. The next time you taste salt, remember who you are. You are not here to fit in. You are not here to blend in. You are not here to be average. You are here to preserve, to purify, to flavor, to heal. You are here to bind yourself to something eternal. You are the salt, and that is the blessing. And when you begin to live with that awareness, that you are the salt, that you are carrying the mark of something sacred, something enduring, something chosen by God himself, your mindset shifts. Your actions shift. Your standard rises. You stop settling for mediocrity. You stop entertaining distractions. You stop allowing compromise to sit comfortably at your table. Because salt has a cost. In ancient cultures, salt was currency. Roman soldiers were paid with salt. That's where the word salary comes from. So when God speaks of salt, he's also speaking of value. He's declaring that your worth is not found in opinions, likes, or validation from this world. It's intrinsic, foundational, and divine. You were bought with a price. You were anointed with purpose. You were infused with substance. And once you realize that, you stop living like a beggar. You stop praying weak prayers. You stop entertaining people who do not see your worth. You start moving like someone who knows that heaven has invested in them. God didn't call you to be sugar. He didn't call you to be sweet and soft and comfortable. He called you to be salt, unapologetically necessary. Salt does not always feel good. It doesn't always go down easy, but it's always needed. Sometimes being the salt means you say what others are afraid to say. Sometimes it means you walk away from what others run toward. Sometimes it means you carry weight that no one else sees but God. And that's the burden of being blessed. The blessing isn't in being liked. The blessing is in being chosen. Chosen to carry the covenant. Chosen to preserve your family line. Chosen to purify a corrupted space. Chosen to flavor a tasteless world. Chosen to endure when others collapse. Chosen to stand firm when culture shifts. Chosen to stay faithful when the world mocks your values. You are salt. And that means you are built to last. Salt doesn't dissolve under pressure, it endures. Salt doesn't flee the fire, it refines. Salt doesn't rot in time, it preserves. And so do you. But here's what many overlook. Salt cannot lose its saltiness on its own. It only loses it when it becomes diluted, watered down, mixed with things it was never meant to mix with. And isn't that the danger today? So many have lost their saltiness. They've diluted their identity, compromised their convictions, blended into the background, trying to please everyone, and in doing so, they've become tasteless. But not you. Not if you choose to protect the purity of what God has placed inside of you. Not if you remain steadfast in a world of shifting sands. Not if you remember that salt, though small, has influence far beyond its size. Salt never needs to be the majority to make an impact. Just a pinch of salt in a pot changes the whole flavor. Just one salted soul in a generation of compromise can change the destiny of families, communities, nations. That's how powerful you are when God's hand is on you. That's how influential you become when you walk in alignment with His will. You don't need the crowd. You need the covenant. You don't need fame. You need flavor. You don't need attention. You need anointing. You don't need position. You need preservation. You don't need applause. You need endurance. And the salt brings all of that. Salt doesn't pretend. Salt doesn't pose. Salt just is. It shows up. It does its job. It stays true to its nature. You don't have to become anything. You just have to become who God already said you are. You don't have to chase what the world worships. You just have to embrace the blessing that's already on you. You are the evidence of the covenant. You are the continuation of the promise. You are the proof that His word does not return void. Every day you wake up with breath in your lungs and purpose in your heart, you are testifying to the power of the salt, the invisible but invincible hand of God that chose to mark you, protect you, and empower you. And maybe you've been wondering why the battle has been so intense. Maybe you've questioned why you've been isolated, overlooked, attacked, misunderstood. But it's not rejection, it's refinement. It's not punishment, it's preparation. God is not weakening you, He's seasoning you. Because seasoning takes time, it takes pressure, it takes consistency. And God will not send you into the world bland. He will not release you into your calling without flavor. He will not allow you to represent His name without depth. So He seasons you quietly, privately, through trials that strengthen your soul, through setbacks that sharpen your character, through delays that deepen your trust, through pain that purifies your motives, because only seasoned salt is ready for purpose. Only seasoned salt can carry revival. Only seasoned salt can transform what it touches, and that's you. You've been seasoned, not broken, not abandoned, not forgotten. Seasoned, and that's what makes you dangerous to the enemy. That's why hell couldn't stop you. That's why your past couldn't kill you. That's why every weapon formed against you failed. Because you carry salt. The covenant is still active. The blessing is still alive. You may not see it on the outside, but it's working on the inside, preserving, purifying, strengthening, empowering. And now it's your time to release it. Not by force, but by presence. Not by noise, but by nature. When you walk in the room, everything changes. When you speak with conviction, hearts shift. When you live with purpose, lives are awakened. Because you're not just walking in your own strength. You're walking with salt, the touch of God, the signature of heaven. And the world doesn't need another trend, another imitation, another echo. It needs salt. It needs authenticity. It needs integrity. It needs consistency. It needs people like you who don't just know about God, but walk with Him. Who don't just talk about blessing, but carry it. Who don't just survive, they preserve. Who don't just recover, they heal. Who don't just blend in, they bring flavor. Who don't just fade away, they endure. This is not a light thing you carry. It is holy. It is weighty. It is eternal. Salt is not about your talent. It's about your touch. Not what you perform, but what you preserve. Not what you display, but what you heal. And that's why God chose salt, because it reflects His nature. It doesn't change with the season. It doesn't need the spotlight. It just works in silence, in strength, in stillness. And so do you. So now the question isn't why God chose salt. The question is, what will you do with it? What will you do with this blessing that preserves, purifies, heals, and binds? What will you do with this divine power, quietly resting on your life? Will you dilute it for comfort? Will you hide it to fit in? Or will you rise up and walk as one who knows the weight and worth of what you carry? You were never called to be ordinary. You were called to be salt, set apart, spiritually potent, eternally relevant. The world is decaying. Souls are spoiling. Purpose is fading. And God is still asking, where is the salt? Let the answer be, here I am. Let your life speak louder than your words. Let your actions flavor the atmosphere. Let your presence preserve what others have given up on. Let your faith purify what fear has corrupted. Because when the salt is really, it doesn't need to announce itself. It just transforms everything it touches. Be the salt, and let the blessing speak for itself.